Hey YouTube, this is Zylock with Media Hindsight, and I wanted to talk today about an interesting build that I've been playing around with in Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls while I've been waiting for the patch for 2.1 to come out, and that's the Grin Reaper Poison build. It's definitely a nice change from your general pet builds and your Jade Harvester build. So let's take a look first at the equipment. Grin Reaper, the most important item here. It says it has a chance to summon horrific mimics when attacking. So anytime you're attacking, no matter if you're actually hitting an enemy or not, you actually have a chance to summon skeleton versions of yourself. You can see there's two of them there, and I turned into a skeleton myself. And what happens when you're in battle, they'll actually cast different spells that you have equipped. And most of them, except for the summoning spells, are fair game, which is kind of cool. And what really sets it apart is the fact that they don't have a cap on how often they can use their spells. So something like Spider Queen, they can have a whole bunch of those out at one time, unlike you can only have one. And they can keep casting spells like Acid Cloud or Zombie Bears over and over and over again because they don't have a mana pool, which is crazy. So they can really rack up the damage quickly without you having to use up a whole lot of your mana. So that's what we're really going to focus this build around. But let's go through the rest of the equipment. Using two-piece Augilds, shoulders, and bracers. Got the fetish army damage on the shoulders because I like the extra meat shields, and why not add a little bit of damage because we're going to be using Fetish Army and Fetish Sycophants, the passive, so why not? Even though Fetish Army damage does not upgrade the damage for the passive fetishes, just keep that in mind. The bracers, pretty general. I'm stacking poison damage on this build, that way me and my mimics can do a lot more damage. That's what we want to focus on here. Then we'll go the amulet, Mara's Kaleidoscope. Still the best amulet that I have. I'd like one where I could have crit chance, crit damage, intelligence, and poison damage on it. But I haven't been able to find one with poison damage that was any good as of yet. And then we're also going to be running a three-piece Zunimasa. We're going to use the Maro with Fetish Army damage, just like with the shoulders. Running Zuni Boots, Zuni String of Skulls as our offhand. And then for your gloves, I kind of go in between two of them. I have these really good Jade Harvester gloves. They really bump up my damage, but depending upon, if I want to focus on my pets, I can. I like to equip my Tasker and Theos as well. But the great benefit of using the Jade Harvester gloves here is that they give me almost a 14% damage boost, which helps not only me but my mimics as well. And since we're going to be doing the majority of the damage, why not concentrate on that? And then for our belt, I'm using a fleeting strap. Haven't found a witching hour yet to use, but that extra attack speed increase is actually really nice for getting your mimics summoned more consistently. So that's nice, but occasionally I will also go to my Harrington Waistguard, which is really nice. It's also got Plague of Toads damage on it, which is my main attack spell. So when you're in an area that you can proc chests and different lootable sources, the damage increase is insane, and I always try to switch to that belt when I can. And then for our pants, we're using Swampland Waders. It's pretty much a no-brainer because of the extra poison damage, and it's the only pants that really give that damage boost. So definitely going to use those. For our rings, we're going to run the Ring of Royal Grandeur because we're using two different sets, the Augilds and the Zunimasa, and it's nice to reduce how many of those items we need to equip, free up some other slots. It's not too bad. crit chance, attack speed, intelligence, and resistance. Like the critical hit damage on there, but haven't found a better one than that yet. And then we're also going to be running a Tall Man's Finger because we're going to be running Poison Dogs. I'd like to get critical hit chance on this, but also haven't been able to find one of those. And then lastly, our weapon, Monojuma's Carving Knife. This is one of the higher DPS weapons I have. Really wish there was a weapon that boosted poison damage, but as far as I know, there's not. If I got maybe a good Mad Monarch Scepter, I might throw it in here for the extra poison damage Nova. But until then, this is the one I'm going to be using for sure. All right, so let's move on to the skills. As I said, my primary attack is going to be Plague of Toads, Addling Toads. It's nice for the crowd control, that 15% chance to confuse affected enemies. That's going to be proccing quite a bit. One upgrade to this build would be finding a Rinho Flare. Still haven't been able to find one of those. But that gives your toads the ability to home in on enemies and explode twice on impact, which would actually pretty much give you a 30% chance to confuse enemies, would increase your damage and your crowd control dramatically. Another one that you could use is Reign of Toads. You lose the crowd control, but you get increased attack speed with this because it does attack a lot faster. So your mimics would probably be up more often, but losing the extra crowd control, I don't necessarily think it's worth it because literally the difference is maybe 1 second apart from using Addling Toads. So I'm going to pretty much use whatever you want. They're both poison-based attacks, so all your poison bonuses are going to affect either one of them. Next, we're going to use Piranha's Wave of Mutilation. I like Wave of Mutilation because it does a flat 475% weapon damage, which is fantastic because we aren't going to be running Grave Injustice to reduce our cooldown. So taking Paranado out of the equation because of the 16-second cooldown, it's just a little too much for this. So the 8 seconds is nice, and what's really great is your mimics are just going to be using this spell probably several times every time they're summoned. So that's great that they can add that increased damage over time on the enemies around you as well as you doing it too. And then we're going to move on to Summon Zombie Dogs, Rabid Dogs. I apologize, I actually said Poison Dogs last time, not the correct title of the rune, but that's okay. Using that because the poison damage increase on our equipment, but also the fact that we don't have a whole lot of single target damage in this build. All of our other attacks are pretty much AoE, so we need him to maybe help us out with some elites and bosses. He does a pretty good job of it, even though we're not boosting pet damage. But he's definitely an important part to the build. Corpse Spider, Spider Queen. This is a great skill for this build. You can see that it does 1,575% weapon damage, has poison over 15 seconds, which this skill isn't very good on its own. Since you can only have one of them up, it's pretty much a waste of a skill slot. But in this build, it's fantastic because your mimics will be summoning this over and over and over again, and you can have upwards of anywhere between 10 and 20 of these spiders running around the screen, even when the mimics have disappeared. I think they only last for 5 or 6 seconds, but these spiders will remain, and they do a ton of stacked damage. I think this is really where the main damage of the build comes from. Definitely don't leave this ability out. Next, we're going to move on to Acid Cloud. Acid Cloud's probably the best poison-based mana spender. Maybe the only other one would be Zombie Bears. But this one's good because you don't have to try and control where your mimics are going or where they're sending their attacks to, because you really can't do that. So Acid Cloud's nice because they can just set a big AoE attack all over the battlefield. And you got a couple options here, though. I like Lob Blob Bomb because I like having a couple extra pets running around. And, they do pretty good damage. There's nothing wrong with that. But another one you could do is Acid Rain if you want to increase the AoE effect. And also Corpse Bomb's really good because it just does the 525% weapon damage all at once, as opposed to over, I think is it 3 seconds? Yes. So that one's nice if you more want your mimics to just spam attacks. But like I said, I like LeBlanc Bomb just because I really like my summoning builds. And I don't like to totally stay away from that thought process. So I just kind of wanted to keep that going. And then last but not least, our Fetish Army with Headhunters. I'm using Headhunters because it's the Poison Rune, and they get obviously the bonus damage from our Poison equipment. I know a lot of people like to use Legion of Daggers in builds like this because you get one extra Fetish. But I'm not really sure the damage of that one Fetish really outweighs the extra benefits of your equipment. But it's nice to have them up all the time with the Zunimasa set, because it's nice to have, those extra meat shields there defending you, doing damage all the time. And up until about T4, T5, they don't really die a whole lot, but towards the end, T5, T6, you're probably going to have to be summoning them every now and then, because a couple of them, if not all of them, depending upon the affixes of some of the elites, they're definitely going to die. But, that's why we have our Fetish Sycophants, too, to help support that. So let's move on to the passives. I got Midnight Feast because I still like to buff my zombie dog. Because he's still doing quite a bit of damage, even without a Mask of Jerem and a Tasker and Theo. So that's why I'm using that. And then Pierce the Veil for the extra flat 20% weapon damage. The mana cost, if you're going to be spamming Acid Cloud a lot, maybe take this off. But that extra 20% damage is also applying to your mimics. So you probably want to keep that, since they're probably going to be supplying the majority of the damage anyway. I would just consider this a flat 20% bonus damage with no negatives. Then I went with Zombie Handler as well. This is definitely for the dog again, and to add a little bit of toughness. I'm lacking a little bit. I think I'm about a little over 9 million. But sometimes if I go to my Tasker and Theos, I think I go down to about 8 million, which makes T5 a little difficult. Definitely get hit once or twice by an elite, and you can go down. So this toughness increase is pretty solid. Another one you could do is Bad Medicine, since we're throwing out a lot of poison damage, and when you deal poison damage to an enemy, its damage is reduced by 20% for 3 seconds. So that's something to consider as well. And then last but not least, the Fetish Sycophants. It's great to have extra fetishes running around. I think with this passive you can have up to, I want to say 15. But the problem is when you get up to 15, they start overriding your fetish army, because you can only have 15 total fetishes at this point. They're going to fix that in 2.1, but for right now you got to deal with that. And I often find that my fetish army does get overridden a lot, because I do stack a lot of attack speed, so I can get my mimics up quickly. But they're definitely super helpful as meat shields. So as with that, let's go look at our Paragon points here real quick. Pretty standard, going to use intelligence and movement speed as we need it. Offense, obviously the attack speed to get the mimics out quickly. Critical hit damage, and I'd definitely use critical hit chance next. But I'd definitely start with the critical hit damage, depending upon how much you have. If your critical hit chance is pretty decent, I think mine is around 40% maybe? Yeah, 43%. So I don't really need too much more, but having it at around 50% isn't all bad. Let's go back here. Defense. I know I'm an intelligence-based character and I have a lot of resist, but I often find myself dying against, like arcane and like fire enemies. So I wanted to bump that up a little bit too. And then I got a decent amount of health for my character, so I thought bumping up life would be a little bit more bang for my buck than doing armor and life regeneration. but I'll definitely hit armor up next when I get when I get higher paragons. And as far as utility, pretty much your only option here is life on hit and area damage. The other two, resource cost reduction, we don't use mana very often, so it's really not worth it. And gold find, I mean, it's okay. If you need gold, it's something. All right, so let's move into some gameplay. Let me show you how this is going to work. Let's go to High Heavens. Sure, there we go. All right, so we're going to make sure we summon our zombie dog and our fetishes. And we're going to go find some enemies to kill, hopefully some elites to show off how quickly we take them down. I'm not saying that this is necessarily one of the best builds in the game, but it's definitely fun to play around with, and it's definitely viable. See, they went down pretty quickly there. And this is T4, by the way. As you can see, my skeletons, or my mimics, sorry, are out. They're casting my acid cloud and my piranha. What was it? Wave of mutilation, and it's doing a lot of good damage. And my toads are keeping the enemies locked down, so they don't get to me that often. And then we got quite a few fetishes running around, and our zombie dog doing quite a bit of single target damage at the moment. So let's see if we can find another elite here real quick. They never seem to show up when I need them to. You see all those spiders out there? When those are standing on top of an elite, they just do sick damage. We got an elite right here. And I mean, like I said, the single target DPS is not that great, but it's definitely sustainable damage, and it's pretty respectable. And if nothing else, you know, being in a party with a bunch of other pet witch doctors, or any other class for that matter, you really will provide a lot of great crowd control abilities, and I think your teammates will really appreciate that, because they won't have to worry about dodging the enemies or anything like that. So that's pretty much the build, guys. I'd have to say it's definitely fun. Definitely look out for the Grin Reaper mask. Well, I got disconnected there. That's fantastic. Guess the internet and Comcast is failing me again. But definitely look out for that mask. It's definitely fun to play with, and you can definitely do a lot of different kinds of build with it. You can use about any skill in the game, like I said, except for the summons and some of the other buff skills with the mask. So you could technically do a fire build, technically do a cold build, or even a physical build. So play around with those. And as always, this is Zylock with Media Hindsight. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and have a great day, guys.